see now it's doing this, right?
Thank you all for coming today. My name is Jehan Agrama. That's Jehan-Agrama. I'm co-president of the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, GLAAD LA. GLAAD now called this press conference this morning and invited all these other people and organizations you see here to talk about our concerns about Basic Instinct's treatment of lesbians and all women. As you can see, there are many diverse organizations here, which is a testament to the seriousness of the concerns we all share. GLAAD is appalled by Basic Instinct. The film encapsulates Hollywood's historical depiction of lesbians as psychopaths, man-killers, and scenes of physical intimacy between women as merely titillation for heterosexual males. In one scene, the Michael Douglas character asks to speak to Roxy, the lesbian, quote, man to man. In another scene, the Sharon Stone character tells Douglas that Roxy likes to watch while they have sex because it excites her. Lesbians are presented as wanting to be men, and lesbianism is never depicted as a viable sexual orientation. The portrayals are cardboard, derogatory, and defamatory at best. But the linking of evil with lesbians is no coincidence. Unfortunately, in Hollywood, lesbian and gay has been shorthand for menacing, deviant, and dangerous. This negative imagery fuels hatred and fear of lesbians and gay men. Anti-gay violence against our community is dramatically on the rise. In 1991, the anti-gay murders more than doubled, with 1,800 incidents of lesbian and gay bashing. Basic Instinct is an assault on all women. The four female speaking roles are either primary suspects or actual killers. There is no balance whatsoever, and the linking of sex and violence and the date rape scene are handled in an obscenely irresponsible fashion. Basic Instinct is yet another in a series of films that marginalizes lesbians and not only distorts our issues and images, but renders them invisible. As an oppressed people, gays and lesbians are systematically denied expression. Our images are rarely seen on the big screen. When we are portrayed in any positive or accurate fashion, we end up on the cutting room floor. Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael, Switch, and LA Story are only a few recent examples. We are outraged at this continual barrage of defamation against us with no balance to counter it. GLAAD intends to hand out educational leaflets at the UA Cornet Theater this evening in an attempt to educate all filmgoers as to the concerns we have with this film and Hollywood's treatment of lesbians and gay men in general. The educational leaflet is in your press packet and does not give away the ending of the picture. GLAAD urges filmmakers who are serious about including accurate representations of gays and lesbians to use us as a resource. But in the meantime, we will continue to challenge the industry to depict the great diversity of the gay and lesbian community until Hollywood can represent us in a recognizable fashion. Thank you.
Also with the New York chapter of NOW as well, which has also expressed concern and will take action regarding this film. On Tuesday of this week, about 20 leaders and activists of the chapter saw Basic Instinct. It is now what we would consider the most blatantly misogynistic film in recent memory in this industry. Misogyny is nothing new, and that's something that has been brought up a number of times, that, well, this is one of just many. But there is something imperative about being able to point to something that is so obvious that people can actually possibly learn from it. This is a film that offers no apologies, clearly has gone on to a line that is so blatant because they feel that it is appropriate to attack women And in this instance, a woman's sexuality is either bisexual or lesbian. We feel is being used as a tool to create a sense that women are even more disposable in certain sectors of our society. Misogyny is rampant in this film. There is absolutely no indication that any woman is worthwhile. The message clearly through Mr. Esterhouse's work is that women are dangerous. Women are to be used. Women like violence. Women want to be raped. Women are man killers. We feel that, again, you cannot separate lesbianism from women. It is an element of women any more than this can be really even a film that's against blondes. However, the message is there as well. We have particular problems with the sense of violence in the film. These messages have had a continual effect on the rising crime against women in this country. The filmmakers' arguments that this debate ruins the civil rights of filmgoers is preposterous. Mr. Esterhouse and Mr. Verhoeven ride on screaming about the First Amendment when in fact they would silence individuals who try to debate their intent by screaming that we are censors, when in fact we are a part of a marketplace that must discuss these things as we attempt to change the face of violence in this country. And the attempt of filmmakers to deliberately and directly increase violence against women, to reinforce messages that lesbians and gays are evil, and that women are to be disposed of. We will not be silent. We think this debate is imperative, and we know now that anyone leaving this film, any spouse to spouse, friend to friend, invariably will debate the nature of the film, and that's what has to go on. We will also be participating in informational leafleting about the nature of images of women in film. We will also be encouraging people to look at this film with an open mind and to not just take it in as a legitimate filmmaking process. Mr. Esterhouse is a misogynist. Mr. Verhoeven decided to direct this film in a nature that would increase and amplify that misogyny. We are disappointed with Michael Douglas agreeing to do this film, and we are pleased with the number of actresses who refused to take on the role that Ms. Stone chose to do. We have every intention to be heard. We will continually attempt to change the ideas in filmmakers' heads that this is okay to do. It does have a direct impact on the condition of women in our society. And we will do everything possible to change the future of this industry and to demand respect and portrayal of women and lesbians.
My name is Savi Bisnath, that's spelled S-A-V-I-B-I-S-N-A-T-H, and I am a board member of the Southern California Coalition on Battered Women. Living with violence or the threat of violence is a reality in the lives of all women. National statistics show that one woman is beaten every 18 seconds, and one woman is raped every 6 minutes. Widespread media depiction of violence, coupled with eroticism, such as the kind seen in Basic Instinct, gives further legitimacy to sexual violence. Scenes of rape, torture, and murder often implies that the victim, usually a woman, enjoys her suffering or even requests it. Images of crazed, man-killing lesbians and oversexed women of color are the norm in most movies. These roles continue to make violence against us both easier and more justifiable in the movies and in real life. The Southern California Coalition on Battered Women joins GLAAD, the National Organization for Women, the Gay and Lesbian Services Center, and Catherine did it in this action to educate the public on the negative and violent portrayal of lesbian and bisexual women in the movie Basic Instinct. Please note that we are not proponents of censorship, but we demand an increase in the social responsibility of the film industry to not condone and promote violence against women. Thank you.
R-I-E-S-E, and I'm with Catherine Did It, which is a working group out of Queer Nation, Los Angeles. The goal of Catherine Did It is to make sure that anyone who decides to support the movie Basic Instinct has at least heard, if not understood, our issues surrounding the implications of this film. The implications to lesbians, to bisexual women, in fact to all women and to the entire queer community. We want people to realize that the depictions of lesbians and bisexual women in this Basic Instinct are not accurate. What is portrayed is a straight, white man's masturbatory fantasy of what lesbians are like. In addition, there is an offensive rape scene, which is presented as if it's not really rape because they knew each other. Now, a year ago, in a meeting with the director, Paul Verhoeven, and representatives of the producers, who are Carol Co., met together with women who have since come to form Catherine Did It. We were told to trust them with this rape scene. We were told not to worry, that Douglas's character, Nick, just wanted to have sex more forcibly than usual. As women, we have had enough of living in a culture where whatever a man wants to do to a woman is acceptable and perceived as our fault. As queers, we have had enough of living in a culture that tells us we are evil and sick and then beats us in the streets for expressing our love. We will no longer be silent while our true queer lives are censored and myths and lies about us are promoted. Basic Instinct is representative of Hollywood's never-ending image of lesbians and bisexual women as being violent, psychopathic, men-hating, irrational, and crazy. We demand that everyone involved, from writers and producers to the audience viewers, start taking responsibility for contributing to the climate of hate that we queers must endure on a daily basis. Queers will respond by all means necessary to Hollywood's profiteering from our oppression, and they will be held accountable. Protests are planned for the opening of Basic Instinct tonight. We realize that any action we do has the potential of boosting ticket sales, but the trade-off is to have our message heard. The alternative of staying silent is no longer an option for us. Our protest is planned to be humorous, creative, and colorful, as well as get our message across without being censorious. Our protest this evening of Basic Instinct is not the end of our protests to Hollywood. We plan to join queers from all over the country on March 30th at the Oscars in raising our voices and sending out our message that as long as Hollywood keeps making homophobia big business, we'll be there to shut it down.
I'm Dr. Sylvia Rue, S-Y-L-V-I-A, R-H-U-E. I'm with the Gay and Lesbian Community Services Center, and I'm a board member of the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. In this week's Time magazine review of Basic Instinct, the magazine's film critic said, quote, "Catherine is certainly bisexual, but it is just another aspect of her cultivated air of differentness, her love of high-risk games and shock effects," end quote. The reviewer said it would be unfair to judge this film as anti-gay. Yet this so-called differentness blatantly exploits society's fear and hatred of lesbians and gay men to enhance the theatrical effect of evil. In the absence of positive portrayals of gay and lesbian people, this film is contributing to the climate in which hate crimes are rising to epidemic proportions against lesbians and gay men. Yesterday, the County Human Relations Commission issued a report stating that 47% of hate-motivated assaults in Los Angeles County are made on lesbians and gay men. Yesterday, the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force issued a report stating that hate crimes against lesbian and gay people have increased 31% nationwide. This is an indictment against this film as much as an indictment against the motion picture industry which is contributing to this climate of bigotry by continuing to portray lesbians and gay men as enemies of society while refusing to balance this trash with portrayals based upon reality.
We have some other organizations here, Southern California Women for Understanding, Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gay, and the Rosa Parks Sexual Assault Crisis. Are there any questions? We'll take questions. Karen?
Pat, you said that you're going to stop this by any means necessary. What do you mean by any means necessary?
At this point, what we mean is by doing education to the public, educating within the film industry. We mean by raising our voices and letting it be known that we will not put up with this. We will not just allow it to go unnoticed. That we that's pretty much it.
Does that include civil disobedience?
At this point, that's not something that we have planned for, no.
Are there any other questions? Oh,
Can I add something to the nature of what's the elements and the differences in this community of what will be seen, not only with this film, but with other films? You're seeing an increased activism in this country around a number of issues. Abortion rights being one of them, gay and lesbian rights being another, and a demand ranging from the Catholic Church to the gay and lesbian community demanding some responsibility within the gatekeepers of our culture. And those are filmmakers, writers, and television producers. Suddenly the word responsibility is a dirty word. And whether it takes education, if that's all it takes, if it takes civil disobedience, as in the case with abortion rights, or when it comes to the images of women and lesbians in our culture, then so be it. It's not going to stop at press conferences. This is not rhetoric. There is a tremendous difference being made, not only in this community, but around the country. And that difference is a coalition like this. The work of GLAAD and Queer Nation, when this film was being made and produced in San Francisco, attempts to negotiate. And if those don't work, then, and fortunately, not that we don't have better things to do here than this, because frankly we do, but you know, we'll do it. And women like this will make the difference, and you're going to see it happen. And it might be just leafleting tonight, but who knows what it will become. The difference is fundamentally, we shouldn't have to be doing this at all, because the role is in the gatekeepers' hands, which they have now shirked. The next thing is, if we don't take the responsibility, then it does open the door for the government to censor. And then we all lose. We are fundamentally opposed to disruptions, to stopping something once it's been done, because we trust the American movie-going public that they have higher standards than this piece of garbage. And it's a bad movie. Carol Co. is in financial trouble. They spent $50 million on this thing. The script is bad, ranging on cliches. It was cathartic, clearly, for Esther House. More women have got to be making these decisions, and more responsibility has got to be taken.
What actresses refused the role of Scarlett? Tammy?
We received Gina Davis, turned it down, Gina Davis, I know for sure. I believe Jodie Foster.
Want 2 mics, please?
There were a good 5 that were in the top now.
Tammy, have you seen the movie?
Yes, I have.
Has everybody
mics,
present
please.
seen the movie?
yes, I've also seen the movie, and also scripts were given to the speakers here today.
Okay, with regard to the leafleting tonight, why do you not intend to give away the ending?
Because it has become, we're doing it because that's what it is expected for GLAAD to do. I have seen the picture. Giving away the ending is not such a big deal, as David Sheehan mentioned in his report, but we don't want to play into the hands of the filmmakers who are accusing us of doing that. That's the pure and simple. it really doesn't matter at the end of this film who did it. It's very ambiguous, and that's our intent. We don't want to create further controversy by doing that. Our role is to hand out a survey that makes the film goer think and consider our issues, which are outlined in it. And we don't want to add to this.
My name is Arnold Newdorf. I'm the parent of a gay man. My wife and I are members of Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays chapter here in Los Angeles. We believe that films like Basic Instincts is exploitive of our children. We don't want to perpetuate the misinformation and myths that have always accompanied a stereotypical, unbalanced image of a gay man or a lesbian. And we simply want to make the world a better place for our children. It's not much to ask.
You know, Carrico's probably sitting in their offices right now, as soon as they hear this news story, and they're probably saying, hey, great, another 100,000 people are going to go see my movie, and I'm in trouble, and this is just fine with me. Aren't you perpetuating this whole issue?
That's come up quite a bit, but when you spend $3 million on a script, $13 million to get Michael Douglas to pull down his pants, you're definitely going to be spending millions of dollars on publicity and advertising as well as prints. We feel that it would be irresponsible of us not to be here today objecting to this picture. I doubt very much that what we are doing here today is going to create more people going to see the picture, but what it is going to create is more discussion about the picture, the seriousness of our concerns, and get that dialogue going.
But what are you hoping for out of, what do you hope for out of Hollywood? Is it just that they think a little bit more before they make movies like this, or do you want them to come to you and say, look, we're doing a lesbian scene, what do you think, how should we change it?
Well,
what do you expect out of these movie producers? I mean, it's their right just to make a movie, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, Henry and June was a blatantly
heterosexual male fantasy of what lesbians are. Yes, you're right. What we are asking from Hollywood is balance. We are sick and tired of seeing negative portrayals of ourselves on the screen. And when you do see a positive portrayal, people don't even recognize us. If we are not dressed in leather, holding ice picks, killing men, hating them, effeminate men, buffoons, or villains. We want balance. We are not against these pictures being made. If there were more pictures with accurate and positive portrayals of gays and lesbians, we all would not be in this room today having this debate. And that's the point. We want balance.
Many African-American filmmakers have said they've given up on Hollywood trying to tell their story without them getting involved making the movies themselves. What about the gay and lesbian community? There are plenty of creative and talented people. What about turning to that?
Well, there are gays and lesbians making films, but we are a diverse community. We are also in the African-American community. We're in all the minority communities. And the point is that, yes, our community will be making its pictures, but there's a big difference between a Hollywood picture with the distribution and the international distribution. So we're not saying that's the only way to do it. But what comes out of the studios is only one-sided, and that is what gets seen the most. And that's what we're talking about here. And we're not going to give up on Hollywood, and I doubt any community will, because we are also Hollywood. We come from the industry, and we're trying to create a climate where these pictures can be made.
Well, what about heterosexual killers? Aren't they just as bad? Why shouldn't they be protested too? I mean, what's the difference?
Well, we're talking about hate crimes on the rise against minorities in this country. To take a majority, and I think Sharon Stone talked about the firemen movies, and how come there aren't firemen out there? Well, there aren't incidents of anti-firemen bashing in the streets. There aren't people being killed because they're firemen. But there are people being killed because they're gay and lesbian, and bashed because they are minorities. And so the issue of equating it to heterosexual majority just isn't there. We're talking again about balance. We're talking about the only images you do see of us are negative, stereotypical. And when there's anything positive, it's cut out of pictures.
Can you name any movie that offers a fair balance of your community?
Oh yes, in fact, GLAAD is giving an award to Frankie and Johnny at our media awards in April. There's a character in there that is gay. Fried green tomatoes is another example. However, in that movie, Because the relationship between the two women was not sexually explicit, everybody left the movie thinking they were best friends. Because you don't see lesbian relationships. Ask any lesbian, that's a lesbian love story. But if you don't see lesbians on the screen in any other format but killers, how are you supposed to recognize us in any other way? And that's what we're talking about.
So if I could respond to your question, historically women have always been talking about violence against women in the media. When Fatal Attraction came out, women all over the nation talked about Glenn Close's character and her negative portrayal.
When you talk about balance, the film's writer said that he has written many roles that are very positive and very complex, involving women, and this particular movie has as one of its main characters a woman who is obviously bisexual, but is manipulative and is very powerful and very cool and strong and fools everyone and gets away with it in the end. So in that...
What a great...
But there are obviously many movies with killers in them, and in this case, at least, she is complete. She gets away with it.
There's the fundamental difference is, again, when we're talking balance, we're not just saying in the same film or anything. And you brought up heterosexual killers. You have a lot of other role models and individuals in films where you have a balance. In this instance, you could say, yeah, but she's a really strong, smart, psychotic killer, and isn't that great? No, it's not great, and it's not okay, because you have finally a lesbian character or bisexual character, which is obvious, and she's a psychotic killer. It's not okay because, gee, she's smart. That's not appropriate. It's not okay. There has got to be a stronger balance. We're not looking here for, well, at least since we all are psychotic killers, at least make us, looking like that and be really smart about it. Let's not get caught because that makes it okay. That's absurd. And the male characters in this film were also kind of disgusting, but they were played sympathetically. You walk out of this film, you're not going to walk out feeling any sympathy or caring for any one of those female characters, and when one of them dies, you're going to hear some applause, and that's what we're concerned about. Despite Michael Douglas's disgustedness with himself and everything else, he's still a family man. He still has a heart in one scene. He cares about raising rugrats. How dare they? How dare they? Enough is enough.
Given that this is clearly a murder thriller, how could it have been changed to make it acceptable?
When we talked to Verhoeven a year and a half ago and talked to him about our concerns, he said actually that he was going to change some of the characters. He might even add a female character that wasn't a psycho. And that would have given some balance to the female characters. But again, this is just one in a series of films that's carrying on with this. Karen?
Given that this film was in San Francisco 1992, and all the sex is rough, unprotected sex, what kind of message does this film send out about AIDS? You haven't said anything about AIDS.
I'm glad you brought that up. In one scene, Michael Douglas's buddy talks to him about having sex, and he said, and you weren't protected? And they brought up the issue of same sex, and your hero shrugs that off and says it's not important. I think it's incredibly irresponsible, but it's to be expected. There's nothing really responsible in this film in their treatment of sex, violence, and AIDS, of course, isn't even brought up because I don't think they're the writer or director even at that conscious level.
How much of it is Hollywood's job to be responsible, and how much of it is to sell movie tickets? I mean, how well would a movie that properly depicts the lesbian community do at the box office, as opposed to one that's going to, probably destroy your image?
I think over 500 films are made a year. How many see the light of day? Whenever Hollywood brings up this issue of making money, I wonder how much garbage they've produced that they've worried about making money. I mean, how many films do they put tons of money in that don't make a penny? And to bring up that issue, plus we've seen on television, for example, all the talk shows are dealing with gay and lesbian issues and getting high ratings. Television episodes, series, Murphy Brown, Coach, have had high-rated series dealing with homosexual characters, gay, lesbian issues. So the audience is there. Again, if you make a picture, you will have the audience. If they won't promote it, They can't expect any money. There is a market out there. If we are an estimated 10% of the country with our family and friends, we are thirsting to see these. And there is an audience. There just hasn't been tested. It hasn't been tried. Any
Thank
others?
you.
Thank you all for coming this morning. Maybe, I don't know if some individuals want to ask specific questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Good. Just a full weekend. Michael DeFries.
The subject is that it continues to promote inaccurate portrayals. It continues to promote the myths about lesbians and bisexuals that are so prevalent in society today. And
What actions are you taking?
Production executives now.
Well, and that's why we've seen playing some more, but it's still a boys'
What about giving away the
and men are still making decisions. It's not acceptable for the community, and until that happens, we're all getting that women have got to stop citing by the bullshit. That gay men have got to start having responsibility as a decision.
I don't see
What I see from what you're saying, though, what about improving the understanding of the people who are making decisions, right?
Very ambiguous to say the least about who did it or who didn't do it. In terms of the destruction, there are so many different ways of venting frustration and anger. And you must understand the gay and lesbian community and women's communities in general. Frustration and our depiction continually.
So I know it would not be direct.
So it is yet to be seen whether it will be disruptive or if it will be educational.
You were trying to describe basically
The Los Angeles chapter of the National Organization for Women. Right.
So why did NLW jump in on this?
Los Angeles now in particular has always played a part and has been concerned about images of women in media. This film, even though we expected it to be anti-gay and anti-lesbian because of the work of GLAAD and Queer Nation in the past, when we saw the film it was quite evident that it was an attack on all women, which is nothing new for this industry, but this was particularly blatant. Filmmakers know the absolute importance of films in our culture. Filmmaking is an integral part within the fabric of what happens in our society. We look to films for what's appropriate, what's popular. It is the fabric of our pop culture, and it stays in our history as indicative of who we are. Filmmakers take great pride in being able to affect our community, and in this instance, they are affecting an increase in violence against women.
You're selling a lot of tickets to this movie by making all this ruckus, don't you think?
The effort has never been not for people to see this. The effort is for people to understand what's going on, to have the information, to know what it is they are seeing, so that they can make educated decisions about what they want to support and what they don't. Silence and ignorance and trying to ignore something has never made it go away. But the debate that will ensue is imperative, and that's already begun.
I suppose there have been a lot of movies that you may have had objections to. Give us some perspective in terms of this film as opposed to other films in the past that have also been negative portrayals.
I think a very good example is Fatal Attraction. Again, the message in that film is if you're a professional, single, have not been married, you're a psychotic killer, or you want to be. Rarely do you see a major film where there is a major female lead where you don't have to wonder, when is she going to be raped, when is she going to be murdered, what's wrong with her. We've got to start having a balance, like men in the film industry have a balance. You see a myriad of different roles for men. You see them as robo-cops, you see them as the good cop, you see them as dad, you do see them as the psychotic killer, but you have an entire breadth of experience with men. With women, the roles are decreasing. Women in film found that by the year 2000, at this rate, there'll be no roles for women at all. That says a lot about the agenda of this industry.
What's the bottom line in terms of what you hope to accomplish here? Do you hope people just don't go to see the movie?
No, absolutely not. First of all, the movie's bad. We don't think it will do well via word of mouth. But for those who do see it, we want them to walk out with their spouse or with their friend, and we want them to be debating it. We don't want them to go, oh, gee, wasn't that kind of weird and boring, but let's go to dinner now. We want them to be walking out, and if they're arguing, that's great too. But the debate is going to go on between individuals, in classrooms, hopefully, in offices, and that's what we want to see is the discussion.
I think I'm going to...
Hi.
Westwood to show us what all the uproar is about. How are things out there, Carrie?
Well, David, they're calm right now, but the uproar is about another gay character in yet another film. You know, for years, Hollywood avoided putting gays in pictures altogether. Last year, with Silence of the Lambs and JFK, gays were depicted as homicidal maniacs and conspiracy suspects. Now, with the opening of Basic Instincts, Michael Douglas's new film, a gay is once again in the movie, and gay protesters are out in force, not only here in Los Angeles, but also in San Francisco and New York, as the picture opens nationwide in more than 1,500 theaters. The protesters are angry not only at the gay character, but at the way gays are depicted in films altogether. Gay rights activists are outraged at what they say is another example of Hollywood's gay bashing. A lesbian character in Basic Instinct is the reason for the controversy. Protesters say she is another negative gay character who is not balanced out by any positive gay characters in movies today.
If they did depict us more in films where we would just be either lead, supporting roles, casual roles, in any positive way or accurate way, we wouldn't be out here.
But the informational leafleting by GLAAD and the noisy traffic-stopping protests of Queer Nation did not deter moviegoers from buying tickets.
I'll make up my own mind after the movie.
Queer Nation tried another tactic, too, naming their group Catherine Did It, to try to spoil the end for anyone thinking of going. They say they have to accomplish 3 things tonight.
To educate the people coming to see this movie about the depth of our objection to this movie and how offensive it truly is. 2 is to open up a dialogue with people, with the movie-going public, and with Hollywood at large, and to try to make them a little more responsible for the kinds of films they're making. And 3 is basically to spoil it.
And those who saw the early shows could only agree that the movie was violent.
I didn't like the way it portrayed women. I felt it was violent.
I can't say I liked it, but I wouldn't allow my wife to see it. I wouldn't bring her to see it.
It's not against minorities at all. It's just something. It's just about somebody. All bad characters in the movie were lesbians, and I can see how they could be upset about that.
But some might argue that all this negative publicity is still publicity. Publicity for a movie that had only received mediocre reviews to begin with.
He wasn't afraid of experimenting.
But the GLAAD spokesman I talked to earlier said, despite the publicity they may be generating for this film, they cannot sit by and be silent. They must speak out when they see something objectionable. TriStar, the movie makers, says that they think the movie is terrific, that's a quote, and they hope that people will go to see the film and judge for themselves, naturally. Now, the informational picketing and leafleting that GLAAD did will be picked up by Cineplex Odeon theaters in the Los Angeles area at movie theaters where this film is being shown. Cineplex Odeon, I'm told, has agreed to distribute those leaflets. Reporting live from Westwood, I'm Kerry Bergman. Back to you in the studio. David?
All right. Thanks for that, Kerry.
San Francisco, the biggest, about 50 there. There were about 25 here a little while ago, and there was a protest in New York as well. The controversy is over a bisexual woman and her lesbian friends. Now, the picketers say they are just negative stereotypes. As the 8 o'clock showing began, a number of protesters tried to persuade ticket holders not to go into the theater. Most of the picketers outside had not seen the film, but condemned it anyway as a typical Hollywood anti-gay, anti-lesbian production.
I've only read the script, but everybody who pays $7 to see a film like this sends a message to Hollywood that they should keep making homophobic, bigoted material like this.
So you're objecting to something you have not seen?
Absolutely. My friends have seen this, and they tell me exactly what happens. And there's no... Hollywood has discriminated against us. This film is greedy and materialistic.
But you haven't seen the film.
And I won't, ever.
Just a few moments ago, the first showing let out, so we sampled some reaction. What did you think?
It's great.
Did you think it was a good film? Did
Sure
you think it was anti-gay or anti-lesbian?
No. No.
There were lots of picketers out here thinking there
That's
was.
no problem. They should see it first.
No objections whatsoever.
That
None.
it was anti-gay or anti-lesbian?
No, I didn't feel that way at all.
Quite a lot of us, as we were going in, they told us the end of it, which I thought was very, very unfair. This should never happen. I think everybody has a right to say something, but everybody was clapping. It's a good, fun movie.
Now, the picketers say that they will be back. The management of this theater says, I hope so, because so far it has been almost a sellout in the first 2 showings so far. Basic Instinct, at least tonight in this theater, may be your basic box office hit. At the Coronet Theater in Westwood, I'm Larry Atterbury. Now back to the studio.
Sure is getting a lot of advance publicity. And for the movie itself, our own Rich Proctor will weigh in with his very own off-center review a little later.
Lesbian and women's rights groups have denounced the film, saying it stereotypes lesbians as psychotics. Sharon Stone plays a bisexual woman who's the prime suspect in a murder.
You ever engage in any sadomasochistic activity?
Exactly what did you have in mind, Mr. Corelli?
Protesters had already disrupted the filming of the movie in San Francisco, and initially there was some talk of rewriting the script. But filmmaker Paul Verhoeven rejected the changes, saying they were dramatically incorrect, weakened the characters, and were inspired not by a desire to make a better movie, but one where all characters would always be politically correct. Moviegoers who saw the first show were split about 50-50.
I thought that the protesting was a little bit overdone. There are black killers portrayed, there are white killers portrayed. It's got nothing to do with these people being bisexual or lesbians.
I think it was a man's movie. I think there was more sex than there needed to be. I just think it was mean-spirited all the way around.
Now, there are several groups out here tonight. Some are insistent on not giving out the end of the movie. Others are screaming it out. You should be warned. In terms of violence, really none out here tonight. It's been pretty quiet so far. Live in Westwood, I'm Cristina Gonzalez. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Christina. Mark's here now.
Tough.
Basic Instinct is an assault on all women. The four female speaking roles are either primary suspects or actual killers. There is no balance whatsoever, and the linking of sex and violence and the date rape scene are handled in an obscenely irresponsible fashion.
The protesters say they know their actions may lead more people to see the movie out of curiosity, but they hope it also encourages discussion about their message. Ron.
Open for business, but here's Rich with a basic double thumbs down.
We got 31 stab wounds.
What was it?
Ice pick.
After all the controversy, after all the hoopla, the protests, the jumping up and down, Basic Instinct opens in theaters today. It's about a cop, a tough cop driven to the edge of his very tough copossitude by a woman.
And what a woman. She's a Phi Beta Kappa with a double major, English and psychology. She's a best-selling author. She's worth $100 million. She has more curves than a scenic railway, and she swings both ways. In short, she's a one-woman Geraldo episode.
What's your new book about?
A detective. He falls for the wrong woman.
What happens?
She kills him.
What am I saying? Basic Instinct should be called Basically It Stinks. It's yet another brilliantly photographed piece of commercial dreck, full of sound and fury, and ultimately as hollow as a chocolate Easter bunny. On the Proctor scale of popcorn bags, 4 bags being best, a generous 1 bag. Another weekend possibility is Shadows and Fog, the new Woody Allen movie.
Gay and lesbian groups have protested the movie. We stand in front of the movie theaters with our TV cameras, and at least here in Westwood, for whatever reason, the crowds have turned out. The movie Basic Instinct has been attracting controversy since before production started in San Francisco. Here in L.A. on opening day, there were demonstrations and an anti-movie news conference from gay and lesbian groups angry about the movie and the script written by Joe Esterhazy.
The message clearly through Mr. Esterhazy's work is that women are dangerous. Women are to be used. Women like violence. Women want to be raped. Women are man killers.
But tonight in Westwood, some people who saw the movie felt the gay and lesbian protests were out of line.
I think it's totally ridiculous for people to be offended by it. It's really ridiculous.
Do you think the gay and lesbian folks have a case?
Absolutely not.
It's going to make the film more money, obviously. If all movie or art had to be politically correct, none of it would be worth seeing at all because there wouldn't be any drama at that point.
Gay and lesbian groups say the protests will continue, but what about box office? One test of what all of this means. The 8, 10, and 11 o'clock shows here in Westwood have so far sold out. So publicity and protest may mean money for Michael Douglas.
Controversy aside, Will, how did most of those people coming out of the movie react to it? Did they like it?
Well, most of the folks we talked to said yes, they did like the film. They thought it was exciting, intense, and a good thriller. But we'll see whether box office will shout down the protests. We'll see.
Thank you, Will.
And these stories are making headlines tonight. Dateline.
All righty. I love Capital. You thought of that?
the homeless, please. Help the homeless, please. Help the homeless.
You're going to see Basic Instinct? What do you think about all this?
You know who did it?
I
don't know what it's all about.
By all these people protesting out here, I think that it just drives the ticket sales straight up. So it makes me want to come and see it, see what all the rage is about.
Time, and I think it's really rude that they're telling people who did it. And I'm just disgusted personally. I'm here to see it. Looks really good.
Men and other forms of sexuality are killing people in movies for years. What's the difference? No, it doesn't bother me. I think it's kind of funny.
This part of the church is the one that always does wrestling. He told me, when he's in his uniform, he don't mess with me. I paid my dues to LAP.
He done picked you up 4 times.
Hollywood homophobia, multi-million-dollar business. Please. The earlier show. You want to see a bisexual woman murder some man? Support those kind of images in public to our children.
Thank you.
Hollywood homophobia is a multi-million-dollar business. Please do not support Basic Instinct. Please get your fingers out of your ears.
Thanks.
Catherine did it. Put your $7 in a better place. Hi. God, I can't believe it. Excuse me? They were the press she thinks that
You like to see what?
I like to see the girls be black, disabled, lesbians.
Is that what you want to see killed?
No, that's what I want to do. There'll always be black, disabled, gay people. Maybe black, poor, pink, and disabled.
See your dad?
Two for...
Hey, see your dad?
Yeah.
You're getting real close to getting trouble.
Two for basic.
You want to hit me? There's a press here.
I don't give one good hoot about press
Ray,
here.
I'm here.
Don't
Take your best shot. You want to hit me?
Start provoking.
You want to hit me? You can hit me. You can hit me.
Such double standard
Hey,
nonsense,
you want to hit me? If you want to... If you are a homophobe, sir, and you want to bash me because I'm a gay man, take your best shot.
No, you're not.
Take your best shot.
You're not
sir.
gay, sir. You've abused the word gay.
Okay.
That's not what it means. You're homosexual. Say what it is. Okay?
Where?
I don't even know who Catherine is.
Where? That's what we...
Hey, you can see it for a buck in 2
Fuck
weeks.
off. I already read the fucking script. I'm gonna give a shit. You guys are weak.
Oh, too bad. Fuck you.
Weak why?
Screw you.
Why are we weak? Because we're gay?
Heterosexual. Catherine did it. Don't you like us here protesting the movie? It's our constitutional right.
Wah, 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 wah.
Wah, wah, wah. You want to hit me, man?
That's all he can say. Let him go.
Are you a homophobe? You're a homophobe. Are you a homophobe? Homophobe whiz.
Have you guys seen the movie?
I read the script.
So did I.
Yeah, well, you're a whiz. You're a heterosexual whiz.
A whiz? How do you know he is heterosexual? And don't accuse him of such a horrible thing.
Just that you asked the question. That's what you want.
Why would you accuse me of homosexuality? You don't even know me.
You just go through bashing. You gotta.
I did? By coming out and... No, by calling people weak. Sure. Yeah. I think that's weak as shit. What is weak? Standing up for one's rights?
For
women's rights? See, I don't care about that. I could do that all day.
I'd love to see him around me, babe.
What's that?
I go out with you.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Enjoy the movie, but you wait 3
lesbians. Basic instinct.
Help the homeless, please. Help the homeless.
Lord.
See, you could have saved your money, had a day.
Why? It's gonna be a good film. You guys ought to see it.
I go out. You got it, man. Thank you. I got 22 cents. Thank you. Every bit helped. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. I don't have to see the movie now because Catherine did it. Catherine Stamping!
I like your seat.
Catherine's guilty.
Catherine did it. That's about right. Yeah. Oh, but I stay football. 8, 9 people a day. Or a settlement.
Catherine's guilty! Catherine did it! Catherine's guilty!
Help the homeless. Don't support Hollywood homophobia. Supporting bigotry, hatred, and misogyny. This film degrades women. Don't waste your money.
I have a friend in it. That's why, and I'm an actor. That's why I'm going to see it.
You have a friend in it. How tragic.
If you're seeing basic instincts, don't buy any food. You'll throw it up.
Don't support Hollywood homophobia.
Catherine did it.
Well, what?
If you're seeing basic instincts, don't buy any food. You'll throw it up. You'll be on stage and really see the stuff they cut out to get it on. Help the homeless. Help the homeless. see this film?
Go see Sleeping Beauty.
Catherine did it.
I'm gonna make a phone call.
Smile for the camera.
You guys need your token viewer, that's all. Basic instinct.
Is it raining? Okay.
Hi, how are you? Look, you ruined my movie.
No, he didn't. Good.
I'm just saying that it's not fair. It's not fair for you to come out here and tell me what I should.
Walk away. I don't want to see your face.
No, because I'm interested to hear what you have to say. I want you to convince me of your position.
Under the bed. Together, you can go in and see it. Don't you think we've always, haven't we always been portrayed as sick people, perverts, child
I think this film portrays all humanity as being.
Yeah, but all humanity has their rights. We don't have our queer rights here from AB 101. We don't get a serve in the middle.
Wait. Okay, let me ask you this. Are you placing blame on this film on someone at all?
You boys take care of it because rape is a man's
Are you
issue.
placing blame on the film? Are you blaming? I mean, there's something. So that. What about the people who protested the Robin
We are tired
Mapplethorpe
of being
photographs?
represented as slashers. You know, we're tired of these negative representations of us, and that's what we're out here fighting. Can you understand that? Can I have a woman in here?
He's a lesbian.
Well, camera box. You obviously don't care about your mother.
I do care about my mother. What does seeing a film have to do?
Homophobia. You know what my best memories
Some people say that about Robert Mapplethorpe's photos.
We're not
But
talking about
if we're not. I'm talking about the context of art in
Yeah,
general.
we're talking about the context of this film. I wouldn't call this art. Catherine did it.
I hate it when it rains on our protest.
Don't rain on our parade.
I should. Look at
Catherine did it. Catherine did it.
my little toilet.
Not Roxy, not Kiss my ice pick, kiss my ice pick, kiss my ice pick, kiss my
like dead.
Leave him! Leave him!
Shake! 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 Fuck you, heterosexual!
Oh, here's they.
One's right there. Your husband's over there. Marshall! Good!
Who a lot of his identity and who he is.
My number. Call me in 5 years and tell me what you think.
No, this is